I'm Cathy. Hello. There are a couple of people new. I have put on a little card the colors that we are going to use today. I did send them out, but we've got ochre, we've got burnt sienna, which is brown, we've got red, we've got two different colors of green, we've got ultramarine blue and a black. So those are colors. I just put those on the sheet so that you could have a look and see. That is our project for today. So within an hour, we'll complete that project. You are amazing students. I have full confidence in you that we will get this done. And if something occurs and you're not quite happy with the results of today's art, not to worry. You've got the picture or the diagram of the outside, and you'll be able to, if you want to, review the art class again and do it on your own. You can also do other colors besides. I just chose these colors because they're nice fall colors. So these are the colors all together on our planter. So with that, we'll just get into art mode. So if you have anything in your mind that is not art related for this 1 hour, just put that in the parking lot if you're able to for this 1 hour. Give yourself this gift of time. And we'll just take a deep breath in and hold it and just release and just drop those shoulders down. And another deep breath in and out. And one more deep breath in and out. And really drop those shoulders down. So anyone that's needing to see that picture, there are two screens. One has the picture that will stay up, and the other one, it will be the demonstration. So the demonstration, I've only drawn, which I sent you the sketch. It's very light on mine, but I've only drawn the sketch of the pot because that's where we'll start. So this is a step-by-step, just one step at a time. We're just going to work our way through painting this picture. It's just a piece of paper. If you're using a canvas, it's just a canvas. You can always, if something happens with an acrylics, if that's what you're using, and you're not happy with your acrylics, you can paint over the whole canvas, let it dry, and start again. So acrylics is very forgiving that way too. So we have the pot. So I'm going to start with ochre. The color ochre, which is yellow. If you don't, well, it's not really yellow, it actually is ochre. So if you don't have the color ochre, you can make ochre with yellow and brown. So more yellow than brown, but with that, we'll just start. So I'm going to just get the bottom part of my pot wet. So I'm just using clear water. So you'll just need 2 water dishes. I keep one clear and one for cleaning brushes. So one is just clear water. You want some paper towel, which I always tap brushes off on paper towel, and some brushes. So right now I'm using a number 5. So usually I say anywhere between a 0 and a 6 brush, and I usually use rounded brushes. So I've just got a number 5 I'm using. And again, I'm just getting that pot wet, just the pot. Just with clear water all the way across. Not too wet, but enough that when I put the paint on, it fills in the spot. I primed that piece of paper to accept the paint. And now I'm going to put on ochre in the bottom part of that pot. So I'm going to go just from one side to the other, all the way down to the bottom, around the corners, the bottoms of the pot, or bottom of the pot, the bottom corners.
Hey, Cathy, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Good, happy to be here. Did you do the top ridge of the pot or just the bottom that we're wetting?
I haven't done the top ridge yet.
Okay,
I've only done the bottom of the pot. So if your pot has edges that aren't completely straight or one side seems a little bit lopsided to the other, that's okay, not to worry. This is just a pot and it's just a piece of paper. This whole project, what we work on together, is just about practicing, working with like-minded artists, trying something new, learning some different skills. think we're going to do a little bit about shadows today, just a little bit. So I want that pot to dry a little bit, but we are going to do a fair bit of work on this pot, which sounds kind of funny, but we are going to. But I want it to dry just a little bit. So it was wet paint on a wet surface. So we wet the bottom of the pot, and not the ridge at the top, just the bottom. We wet that first with clear water and then put on ochre. So now, staying with that color ochre, I'm going to create the look of some flowers up above, all around my pot. So I'm just going to do some sort of round. They can be kind of ovally. They don't have to be perfect. A couple in the middle. So I'm just putting some ochre spots around my pot. So I have 9. I didn't do 9 on purpose. There's just happens to be 9 there, but I do like odd numbers. Even numbers, our brain naturally is able to compute an even number, but an odd number, we have to think, and it keeps the viewer looking just a little bit longer, and that would be the object of doing your art. So while we've got that wet paint on with the ochre, we're going to add the red. So it's a very bright red. So I'm going to go into the red, and I'm going to pretend that these flowers, the bottom part of all these flowers, so if they were falling down, that's the bottom. I'm going to give the bottoms of the flowers a red splotch. So that's going to blend a little bit and turn almost a little bit orangey. So this is a step-by-step. So we'll just be working away one piece and then another. Now, to add another dimension to those flowers, I'm going into ultramarine blue, and on the tips of the red, I'm going to add ultramarine blue.
Kath, did you clean your brush or not?
I did rinse my brush off because I don't want the red in my blue, so I don't want to contaminate my tray.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But so we have ochre and we have red, and then we have that tip of blue.
Where did you put the blue? I don't see it.
On the tip of the red. It's sitting at the tip of the red. So if I go close, you can see it's turned a little, it almost looks a little bit black, but that's okay. Now with the brown, I'm going to put the brown on my tray. So if I show you what I'm doing with the brown, I'm going to put the brown on my tray. So it's burnt sienna or brown, but I'm going to water it down. So it's going to get quite a bit lighter. So we want to water down that brown, and I'm going to do the top of the pot in that lighter brown or lighter raw sienna.
Burnt sienna or raw sienna, Kathy?
It's you know what, I think it's almost a burnt umber, but it's brown really. It's a brown color that we want.
Okay, so the burnt sienna.
But watered down so that it's light. We're still going to do a fair bit of work on this pot, probably more, almost as much work on the pot as we are on the plant itself. So this is just our base. So just keep it light. And now we'll take that same color, but full on, like a high test coffee. And we're going to draw an arch, a bended arch from one side of the pot to the other. And we're going to fill in that side with the same color.
Well, that is not the same. I mean, it's not watered down. Is that what it is?
We're not, do not water down. We want a full on dark color.
Oh, okay.
The same, you're using the same color, but you're not watering it down.
Gotcha.
Now, this is not the end of this pot. This pot is going to get darker and darker because this is a shadow. And we'll take that same color and we're going to draw a single line. And then we're going to draw a double line. So remember, watercolor dries lighter, 20 to 30% lighter than when you put it on. We are going to come back again over these lines. If they're not as straight as you want them to be, we're going to still continue to work with this. So there will be some ways and places that we can do a little bit of correction if you need or want to, or feel that that's what the step that you'd like to do. So let's start to have some fun with the green. So we're going to take the lightest green that we've got. So if you've got a sap green or a leaf green, and I'm sticking right now with my number 5 brush. I'm not wetting the canvas, I'm only wetting the paint. So I'm just getting that on my brush. And I'm just starting to create the look of some leaves here and there throughout my flower. This is a flower that's on there right now. So I'm still sticking with that lightest green. And you can see I'm just touching out with my brush. And when I lift off, it gives me that little point at the end. So press your brush down and then lift off. So just press down and lift off, press down and lift off, press down and lift off. And we're not necessarily looking for anything perfect. We're just looking for the looks of leaves, but we do want some of them to hang down around the outside. Oops, I got a little bit of a splash there. And we just want a few to hang down around the outside. So take a deep breath. Just release that tight grip on your paintbrush. It's just a piece of paper. So we had 2 greens. We had the lighter green, which I've just put on, and we've got a darker green. And the darker green, I'm going to start to fill in a little bit of those spaces in between, but I do still want some white left. But I am going to go a little bit closer to my pot with those. So I'm going to almost sit right at the edge of the pot. And I'm just going to give some little wiggly lines. Just a little bit of dark in and throughout. And they don't have to be quite as pointed. If they're just sort of a worm-like line, that's fine. Some can be shorter and some can be longer. So just allow your imagination and the brush to play and the paints just to move wherever they want to go.
Cathy, I don't seem to have such a dark green. Could I add a little black to my green?
Add blue to your green.
Blue, a dark blue?
Add blue. Add the same blue that that we put in the picture, we're going to put the ultramarine blue, add that same blue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So sticking with the same series of colors throughout a picture is important too. If we used one blue in one part of the picture and a totally different hue of blue in a different picture or different side of the picture, it may not look coherent. It just doesn't meld together. So try to stick with the same blues and the same greens. Even if you're mixing blue and green, stick with that blue further on in the picture. So now Beth didn't have quite as dark a green as I've got, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to make even a darker green. So I'm going to mix the lightest green with ultramarine blue. And I'm going to get an even darker color. So it should start, because I'm mixing more blue than green. So it should start to get really dark. So see, it's even darker in the picture. So there's another variation of that green look, but I've mixed it with the blue. So more blue than green, but it's still going to be in the green family, but it will be very dark. But I'm going to also rim the top of my pot in that dark blue-green. So I've run a line across the top of my pot. And then I'm going to continue and add that dark color. Just avoiding my flowers where I can. But still leaving a little bit of white. That's always pretty to see.
Cathy,
Yes.
I'm pretty well up to date. One the instruction that I missed was on the rim of the pot. What was the color that you mixed?
It's ultramarine blue and green, more ultramarine blue than green, so that it has a bit of that green hue, but it's still dark.
Okay, and also just below it, I didn't get anything. I still have a white on the underneath that dark green rim. That's part of the pot.
This is
Yes.
watered down or lightened burnt sienna.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to switch to a number 3 brush, not using my number 5 now, using a number 3 because it has a narrower tip. And I'm getting burnt sienna. And I'm just making sure I'm rolling my brush, just rolling it slightly on my paint tray, just to ensure that I have paint on the tip. And I'm going to do some little lines coming from the top of the pot on the rim to the outside. So they don't have to be perfectly straight lines. If they're wiggly lines, that's fine. If they're straight lines, that's okay. This is just a little bit of a weathered look. We are going to do a little bit more with this.
This is in brown.
I'm using the raw sienna or the brown, yes, or sorry, burnt sienna. And then I'm going to paint that shadow on that pot again. So I'm going back over and I'm putting fresh paint on my shadow. So watercolor is a combination of color on color on color sometimes. We're going to do, as I had said at the beginning, We're going to do what seems like an unusual amount of work on this pot to come to the effect that we have a really great shadow. So not to be lifting off paint. So if you're lifting off paint, get fresh paint on your brush and use a really light touch, almost not touching your paper or your canvas. And while you're doing that, I'm going to read our halftime, our May You Know Joy meditations for everyday living. That might give some of you the chance to catch up. And so may you know truth. It is so simple and yet so powerful. Sometimes it is difficult to face, but it is undeniable and there is vast strength in it. Do not resist it, but accept it and embrace it. Stand in your truth and speak your truth. Feel it in your core and know it in your heart. With truth, everything is clear and free and exquisitely raw. The truth really will set you free. So may you know truth. So we're this far with the pot. The pot's going to even get a little bit darker, believe it or not. But right now we're going to move away from the pot and we're going back up into the flowers just to let that pot settle a little bit. So we're going to go, I'm just going to add a little bit more green in my, a few little wispy areas of green in mine. I just seems I have an awful lot of white. If you don't have as much white, that's okay, that's good. And so we're going to do a lifting off technique. So with clear water, so I have this color on my card right now, and I've got my brush wet in clear water. I tapped it off with paper towel, and I'm going to rub on a spot, and I'm just lifting off some paint. So I'm going to lift off, I'm going to rub and rub and rub on that spot until the paint has no choice but to move. So you can see it's starting to get lighter. It's taking me a few times doing this process, but it's getting lighter and lighter. And so it's leaving me a soft, almost bald spot in that color that I've shown you. So I'm going to do the same to create the look of soft leaves in my picture. So I'm going to rub, take the paint off. I'm rubbing it off with tapping my brush. I'm going to rub, and now I've got the look of a soft leaf in my picture. So it's softened this leaf. So I'm not taking any particular leaf, but I'm just doing a few spots where I've got some paint and I want the look of a soft leaf. So it takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of patience. Sometimes it's more than one time you need to rub. Sometimes it takes it off right away. So this is lifting off. And it just gives, it takes the paint off and just gives a nice soft look without adding any extra color. Beside my shadow on my pot, I'm going to use a damp brush and I'm going to pull down a little bit of that color just to create an extra spot of a shadow. So I haven't added any paint. I used clear water and I pulled down a little bit of that paint to create an extra part of a shadow on that pot. So the pot also has a shadow on the ground. I'm going to start with ochre. And at the side of the pot, not below it, but at the side of the pot, I'm going to put a little zipper line of ochre. Now I also used blue in the picture, so I'm going to do the same and add some blue above it. And while that's still wet, I used red in the picture, and so I'm going to put red in there as well. So for the shadow, I have ochre on the bottom, blue on the top, red in the middle, and I'm just going to let them blend. We're going to do a little bit more work with that shadow, but those are colors we've used in the picture, so we want them to carry on. And now I'm going to take some black, and I'm going to run black, a line, a broken line through the center of the top of my pot. And I'm going to run the black right across the top of my pot, right down the sides. So I'm using black at the top of my pot and down the sides.
Kathy, what do you use if you don't have black?
Mix blue. I think mix blue and brown.
Thank you.
Blue and brown will give you a really dark color, but add more blue and it will give you almost black.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with the black, when I come around the side of the pot, I'm going to run down the side of the pot to my line and then come in and come across. I'm going to come down the side of my pot, across the next line, down the side of my pot, across the next line, down around the corner to the bottom. So I can straighten that out a little bit if my lines aren't completely even, but it's easy to do. It makes a nice line and gives you a rounded edge on the pot. If you go down and to the side and down and to the side. And I'm going to carry that black, or if you're using the darker color, a mix of blue and brown, come down around the outside of the pot on the other side. So take a deep breath and drop your shoulders. It's not quite
You always
fall
say
yet.
that. You always say that at the right time. Thanks, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Do we do black under the rim of the pot, the bottom rim?
We're going to do the whole bottom part black. So not to worry because we're going to add black in there.
Okay.
So if I draw that now and show you what we're going to paint black on the pot, is going to be all inside this dark area, not this little shadow that we put extra, not this little shadow, leave that one as a shadow, but the rest is going to be black or the dark color that you've got. So we're going to do that. That's going on top of all the other colors that we put on the pot. And without those other colors, you wouldn't get that deep auburny look at the bottom of your pot. So it's just that, see, it's got that little bit of a sheen of an auburny look, even with black put on top.
Okay, I think I missed something. Just now, did you darken the pot again?
Yes,
And was that with black?
that's with black. So just sit your black on top of the color that you've got there.
In the
Because
shadow part?
we're going to leave this shadow part, the color that it is, and we're going to leave this side of the pot in ochre, but the other spot is black. Yes. So it looks almost a little bit ready because we've got the ochre and we've got the burnt sienna in there already. So when we put the black on top of that, a little bit of that rusty color still comes through. So this is what happens with watercolor. You can put color on color on color. I'm still working with my number 3 brush. It has a nice point. If you have a 0 or a 1, they work very well as well. I'm going to use clear water and I'm going to go on top of my shadow at the side, and I'm just going to rub that together with clear water. So I want that to start to blend. And it's a little bit too red for my liking, so I'm just going to add a little bit of brown. See if I can lift off some of that excess red. And put in some brown. I'm still going to lift off a little bit. I still find it's a little bit darker than I like. And I'm just adding a little bit of ochre. And with ochre, I'm just going to cover over any spots that I don't want ochre on. So I'm just covering with a blank piece of paper, or, well, it's a piece of canvas for me, but or a piece of art paper, but I'm just covering over my pot and I'm just flicking the end of my brush to give a few dots on my page of ochre. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I don't want it on my pot, not the ochre. And I'm just flicking my brush just to get some dots of ochre. So I'm just getting a wet brush with wet paint. And I'd like a little bit of red on there as well, just a few dots of red. So again, I'm getting my brush wet and going in getting some fresh wet paint. And I'm just flicking a little bit of red and a little bit on this side. And on my pot, I would like to have some brown, just a few brown spots or the raw or burnt sienna. Oops, need some more water. I just want a few dots on my pot. So just put a few dots, a little bit of the flower falling away. And now we want to connect those flowers. So I'm using black on my brush. If you have your dark color mixed with blue and brown, I'm going to take make a stem from the top of the pot to the flower. So now I'm joining the flowers by a stem.
Excuse me one second. What color did you flick on the pot?
I used the same burnt sienna, the brown color.
Brown. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So just cover over any edges that you don't want paint on. Now I don't need to, when I'm making this branch in black or dark color, I don't need to go all the way to the bottom of the pot, with every one. I can just use a white spot to my advantage and just put a stem in there. And it can stop. It doesn't have to go all the way to the bottom. So you see this stem goes from the flower but stops here. My eye or anybody else looking at this picture, except I'm telling you now, but normally your eye would naturally fill in that gap. So they don't always need to attach to something. And I always like to add a few extra little branches. We've made, by lifting off, we've made those nice soft, we've made those nice soft branch spots or looking like greenery. So I'm going to take advantage of that soft spot. And I'm just going to put a little bit of a leaf here and there, a little bit of a twig in some of those spots that I've made clear. So here's another one up here. I'm just going to use that white space or clear space and just add a little bit of a twig. And I'm going to add some extra twigs just because I like to do that. And they can come out here and there. A couple off to the side. And if you don't have a steady hand, that's fine. That's perfect. This is a great project for this. So just a little few little branches coming out here and there.
Are those branches black, Cathy, or?
They are black. They are black. Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to use some of that black just at the bottom of my pot. just along my shadow. So I'm just flicking my brush a little bit, just a little bit along the shadow. And here's where we decide artist signature. What is it going to look like? Where are you going to put it? It's up to you. I'm going to use that black spot at the bottom, where I've drawn that little line at the side, and I'm just going to put my signature down there. So I'm just going to add just a few little markings on my pot, the top of my pot, just to give it a little bit more weathered look. And there you go. That's what you can do in 1 hour. If I take my mat from the picture that I displayed and put that mat on this picture. There you have it.
Can you tell me what I could do to the stems of mine?
Oh, with the stems, actually, if you put some more green leaves on top of some of those stems,
Okay.
yeah, you'll have a really full effect. Yeah, just a little bit more greenery. So put some green slashes over top of some of the black lines.
Kathy,
Yes.
if we wanted to put some sort of a background, something kind of light behind the pot and all that, what would you say color-wise? Would you say very, very, very light green? Or would you say a blue? What would you think?
I would say a light blue. Even if I took the aquamarine blue that that we used in the picture.
And you water it right down?
Yeah, so let me do this side of the picture. So I'm going on top of some of those red dots that I've done before.
Okay.
And underneath, well, underneath, I don't know that I would, because I don't, it's not sky underneath. So I might go dark. I might do a two-tone. So I would do blue at the side, the same blue, the aquamarine, but watered down.
Okay.
So watered down quite a bit. That looks pretty dark. Let me just lighten that up a little bit.
Because I didn't do the splatters and I was wondering if there would be a way. So I guess the very, very light watered down ultramarine would do it.
Even with the splatters on there, it turns out it's quite nice. So there's the blue, but because I'm doing that, I don't want it to look like this pot is sitting in the middle of nowhere. So I might do the brown right underneath it just to give it a grounding.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, you don't want it suspended in midair.
Right. So that's with the blue. So I just went side to side, just with the blue, just lightly. I'm touching here and there, picking up a little bit of the other colors that are there. So it's not looking so randomy, like it's really does add by picking up the other colors.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's beautiful.
yeah, so that's just a side to side. I'm not too concerned about it. I still have some white in there, which is nice to have that white in the background. And I would leave in, there's a little bit of white around some of the leaves. So I would leave the white.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
so there's original with no background, and then there's the background. So there you go. Thank you for testing me.